What is your life's biggest mystery that will probably go unsolved? I worked at the public library. I scanned a guy's library card, then went to hand it back to him. He saw me start to hand it to him. Our hands were about a foot apart. Then suddenly the card was gone. It never made it into his hand. We were both totally confused. I looked under the computer desk in weird cracks, but never found it. I still think about it. When I was little, me and my babysitter were outside, and it started to rain. My babysitter said, "Watch this," and walked out into the road. No cars. She lifted her arms to form a T-shape, and it started to rain heavier. She put them down, and the rain slowed down. She put them back up, and it poured again. I'm sure there's a valid explanation, but for now I'm still baffled. About a year ago I found a playing card in my wallet with a scantily clad woman on it. No matter how much spreading I did, my husband and all our friends swear they didn't do it. I still have it in my wallet and occasionally ask friends about it, but to this day no one has fessed up. Car followed me home from work late at night. Didn't know where the police station was, so I stopped on a dark road near my suburb to make sure he was actually following me, and sure enough he stops behind me. I got out and grabbed the emergency axe out of the truck without even shutting off the car and started walking towards it, and the car sped off. I was tired and stupid for doing that, but I will never know why or who that was. I was traveling in Italy when two American girls came up to me and started talking excitedly about how they couldn't believe they'd run into me in Rome and wanted to know how my trip had been going. But I had no idea who either of them were. And if you're thinking it's a prank, bro, they knew specific things about my life and my travels that only someone who knew me would have known. I still have no idea who the hell they were. When I was a kid, like 7 or 8, I started to randomly see nothing but brown, like staring at a wall, usually only on one eye, but not always the same, rarely on both at the same time. Went to several doctors and they did some testing, but nothing came up. As I grew older, there was more time between occurrences, and now I haven't had it in close to 10 years. Sometimes it still bothers me not knowing WTF that was. My mother died about a dozen years ago. At the funeral home we received a lovely bouquet of flowers with a card from the band the Red Hot Chili Peppers that said, "We are saddened to hear of Rennett's passing. We are a humble family from southern Indiana." There is zero chance she ever had any contact with those boys. Is this something they just randomly do? They would have loved her, though. She was the warmest person you could ever hope to know. When I was like 7 I was playing my Gamma Boy at my grandma's house and I got mad that I kept dying in Mario, so I took the actual game out and threw it at the wall. I saw the game hit the wall and fall behind the dresser. After moving everything in the room and many years of searching, I still look for it and still wonder what happened to it occasionally. A few years ago I got a citation, and when I went to pay it off, $350, they told me it was already paid for. Asked everyone I know. No one claimed they did. I don't think I'll ever find out who it was. Similar to a lot of other stories here, dropped a screwdriver in my bedroom. Had it hit the floor. Then it just disappeared. I never saw it again. I wasn't even standing. I was kneeling. So it only fell a few inches. It wasn't a huge screwdriver, but there aren't any gaps in my bedroom anywhere that I could find that a screwdriver half the size would fit into. Two particular stories. 1. In 2015 I was working on some assignments at home at like 9 AM. I was sitting at the desk in the living room, doing my work on the computer. I could see directly into my housemate's room from the desk, but since he was asleep the door was shut. The door was slightly raised off the ground, so you could see if there's anyone standing behind it, or their feet anyway. Suddenly the door starts shaking and rattling, as if someone is trying to demolish it. There's no one behind it. I'm just looking at it with my mouth agape, and then, a few terrifying minutes later, my roommate opens the door and asks me, "Dude, WTF are you doing?" So I go, "It wasn't me. I'm sat over here," and we both are flummoxed to this day. WTF caused that? 2. I was dozing off a few days back when I heard a door shut and someone loudly running away. I live alone. I checked all the doors and they were all shut. I don't get it. The time I woke up on top of my refrigerator. I don't remember exactly how old I was, sometime in my early teens. But it's exactly what I said. I woke up on top of my refrigerator. I had been sleeping up there curled up like a cat. And to this day I have no idea how I got up there. There was nobody home at the time who could have put me up there while I was sleeping. And there's no way I could have climbed up there unassisted. But there were no chairs or stools or anything around the fridge I could have used to climb up. And I obviously couldn't have used one and put it back while I was still up there. I also had no prior history of sleepwalking whatsoever. And to my knowledge I've never sleepwalked again since. To this day, I have absolutely no freaking idea what happened. And it still bugs me. If anybody has any theories as to how this could have been possible, I would love to hear them. Definitely the time a friend and I saw a dragonfly that had a wingspan of over a foot in the American Midwest. It was too big to be real, yet it was. We were maybe 12 and this was over 20 years ago. He still remembers as vividly as I do. On the 4th of July I had a few drinks, then a few more. The next morning I had a black eye, a bunch of $1 bills, $137 worth, and a long-time crush in bed with me. Neither of us remembers the night before after midnight. None of our friends saw us after midnight. And we both had no text or calls outgoing after midnight. It was still one of my best 4ths ever, just with big gaps. One night I heard my boyfriend come home from work while I was sleeping. He came in and said hi, then went out to the living room. I get up not long after to convince him to come to bed, and he's not home. I called him, and he told me he had stayed late at work and repeatedly told me he had not come home that night at all. I freaked out and made him come home right away. Creeped me out for a while. When I was 12 I was working under the table jobs and made a lot of money. I hid it in a helmet in my room. I remember taking $20 once, but since then I've moved twice and to this day don't know where the money is. I had 3 total hiding spots and can't remember if I spent it or someone stole it. It was probably $500. One time when I was in university I went out drinking on Halloween and blacked out. I woke up with all my clothes soaking wet and a black eye. It hadn't rained the previous night, and to this day I still have no idea how I got soaked or what happened to my eye. One day I woke up and my Rolex watch was gone from my bedside table. I was gutted, to say the least. It had enormous sentimental value. I searched the house high and low, nothing. About 10 months later I went to put some redundant boxes on a shelf that required a ladder and a steady person to foot it. Bear in mind this was a Victorian house with high shelves and these we had never used or could see on. My Rolex was there and it was still running and on time. Still freaks me out and still freaks out my partner. I moved into a new house in July. After unloading all the things I'm the owner of, I realized that I had neglected some basics like toilet paper and dish detergent. I went out and stocked up on a few things, including a giant pack of my favorite TP with the bears on it, only to realize that my mom had picked some up for me while I was out. This giant pack of TP became a thorn in my side as I moved into a house that was a complete gut job, and every way I turned I was tripping up over boxes and such. There wasn't a shelf or cupboard big enough to store it, so I was always throwing it somewhere. Cue the day I need it. Where is this monstrosity? Nowhere. I search every nook and cranny of my house, which has become a lot more organized over the past couple of weeks. I search. I ask friends and family. It's gone. I go shopping and try to forget about it. I still look for that giant pack of toilet paper. I can't forget. It haunts me. How does a humongous pack of toilet paper disappear? And this, I feel, will be the greatest mystery of my life. My calculus teacher just kind of materializes out of nowhere. I know what direction he walks toward the class from, so I've stood out there and looked. But he doesn't come from anywhere. He is just walking towards class all of a sudden with a cup of coffee. It's like he lives in his own pocket dimension or something. One day, when I was in 8th grade, I remember being woken up from my bathroom floor by my stepmother. It was around 7 PM, and I had no recollection of that day, Wednesday, or the day before. But I remembered that Monday clearly. I still wonder what happened during those 2 days that I don't recall, and how I ended up passed out on the bathroom floor. Traveling the US. Arrive in Austin. Meet an African girl named Wendy. Spend a little time with her. Nice but nothing special between us. She leaves. A couple days later, time to go for me. I take the train to Denver. End up getting stuck. Delayed a day or two. Miss my transfer and end up in Chicago. Get off the train. And there is Wendy. In the Windy City. Walking right by at that instant. There were a lot of serendipitous moments during that trip. So I'm perplexed but not surprised. I was opening mail at work. Boxes of various kind. We were in a dire need of a pin extractor tool. And one of the boxes was from that store. I open it. Check the list. That it should indeed be the tool. But the box only had a piece of brown packaging paper. I even showed the empty box to a colleague next to me. I then proceed to the next box, which was from a supplier abroad. The tool was inside that box, as well as the supplier's item. The box was sealed with supplier's tape, so there's no way someone just moved it there in some mail center or something. We are still completely baffled. What in the frick happened back then? Around 2004 I was working as a projectionist at a movie theater. One of the kids' movies ended, but the last movie to end still had about 50 minutes left to its runtime. So one of the things I would typically do would be to check the theater for left behind loose change or unopened candy. So I run down there and look around for maybe 10 minutes. I make my way back upstairs thinking I still have about 40 minutes left in my night. And next thing you know, my boss is calling me on the walkie-talkie asking me if I'm done and ready to go home. I thought he was just messing around, which he sometimes would do, and didn't think much of it. Until I realized none of the movies were running, and holy crap, I somehow just time traveled about 45 minutes into the future. My watch was even wrong. I've never been able to explain it to myself, and at this point I'm just assuming my mind made the whole thing up. Or I'm a one-time time traveler that one night randomly moved ahead about 45 minutes for no reason. Back in 2004, I worked with a rapturously beautiful girl who, one night while we were on a break together, just poured her heart out to me about how hard life was coming down on her. She was a single mom trying to make ends meet. Anyway, I get up to go back to work, but before I leave, I offer her a hug. She stands up and hugs me for like 30 seconds. It's the tightest anyone has ever hugged me in my life. Couple months later, I find myself moving halfway across the country for a career change that ends up not working out. About 6 months after that, I move back and get my old job back. To my delight, she is still at the job. So I go in for my first day back with butterflies out the ass. Come to find out she had 4 days of work left before she was moving on to become a nurse. In some sense, it's almost like she did to me exactly what I did to her. Left the other in favor of a career. I'll always wonder if she felt as strongly for me as I did for her. I never really got the chance to tell her. Maybe I should have. This weekend, I overheard an exchange between a mom and her 8-year-old son. I'm going to spend the rest of my life wondering how the rest of the conversation went. Mom, you can't do that. Son, why? Mom, it would be cannibalism. Son, so. Honestly, there's 4 hours of my life I once lost to blacking out from intoxication. Horrible crap happened to me. I was hospitalized, and to this day it's a mystery to what I went through. My cousin and I were having a girls' night at home, and went to go grab some wine. So, I lived in a basement suite that had French doors, which I always locked when I left. When we came back, my cat's 2 food dishes were sitting on the placemat I was using right in front of the door. No kibble or water spilled. I usually kept them in the kitchen. It was like someone had displayed them for when we came back. Saw it through the French doors and we both froze. Freaked me the hell out for a long time. One night, when I was 14, my sister had a slumber party. She was 12, as were all her friends. 5 giggling girls in the living room, which shared a wall with my room. The only other female in the house was my stepmother. I was playing Nintendo in my room and fell asleep around midnight. I woke up around 6 AM on my back in my bed, still clothed, with a satin garter edged with lace in my hand. I had never seen it before, and I never found out where it came from. It was the end of school and was walking home. Took me about 10 minutes. However, when I arrived home, and opened the door to my left was about 100 dead bees on the floor. All of my windows were closed, there was no holes or anything in the walls/ceilings. We even had a guy come in to check for a nest, but there was nothing, just a pile of mysterious dead bees. Still confuses me today on how they got there and why they were dead. I never thought I'd have a place to tell this story. Okay, so I decided to trial a baby gymnastics with my 1-year-old. She is having fun, and I decide to get my phone to take a few photos. I notice it's not with my bag, but I don't panic. I'd probably left it in the car. I know I had it in the car because I'd been listening to the Hamilton soundtrack. I finish the class and walk to my car that was parked parallel to the gym. I put the baby in her seat and call out, "Hey Siri," a long established trick I use to help me find my phone. Siri doesn't answer. I'm slightly more concerned than before, but I still get in the car, still expecting to see the car connect to my phone's Bluetooth, because it's in the car, right? I start driving and nothing happens. Now I know my phone is absolutely not in the car. I was already in the car, so I pull into my mum's house, who lives 2 minutes from the gym, frantically calling my mobile. To my relief, a woman answers, saying I left my phone at the gym. I thank her profusely, saying I'll come right back and collect it. She says okay. I drive back down the gym, walking and looking slightly embarrassed. The coach smiles and says forget something. I laugh and say my phone. Then she says yeah, go walk around and look for it. I paused. What? But I just called it and a lady said it was found at the gym? The coach is as confused as I am, saying no phone was handed in and no one had entered the gym since I left. She called out to the 2 other mums who were there, asking if they had any information. They didn't. So now I'm really confused. I borrowed the gym's phone to call my phone again. It rings, but no one answers. I must have stood at the gym desk for 5 minutes just trying to process what was happening before I asked the coach if I could borrow her phone to look at Find My Phone. She hands over her phone and I punch in my details. The compass spins around a few times then stops. I see my phone on the map, close by, in fact, only 3 streets away, at another gym. I thank the coach, drive to the other gym, one I had never entered in my life, and see my phone sitting on the counter. I ask the receptionist who handed it in, but she says she doesn't really know. How did it get to the other gym? Where was it found? Who found it, and why didn't they drop it into the first gym, since it had to have been lost on the sidewalk from the car to the first gym? I still don't know how it got to the other gym, or where it was found. I don't think I ever will. TL, drive. I somehow lost my phone walking from my car to a gym parallel from my car spot. It was later found at another gym I had never been to. I've got 3 children with pretty unique names. Not unheard of but not common. My oldest son, Rylan, was 9 at the time, and sitting on the couch, my cell phone rang, which was weird, because it was only used for emergencies as I used my house phone more often being a stay-at-home mom. I answered it, even though I didn't recognize the number. Here is how the convo goes. Me, hello. Teen boy, hey mom. Who is this? Looking in the living room, to see all 3 of my kids hanging out on the couch. TB, mom. It's me, Rylan. Me, Rylan who? Now I'm frantically looking at my son who is very confused. TB, mom. Stop playing. Phone sounds like it's got a hand covering the mouthpiece and I can hear another voice say no it's not time yet, oh I'm sorry. Wrong number. Click. Whether it was a prank or my kid from the future I'll never know. I do know I had to hold on to the wall so I didn't pass out. After I tried to call back about 2 minutes later it said the number was disconnected. Super freaky. Do they think about me as much as I think about them? What could my life have been like in a parallel universe where I made a different decision for each of the billion choices we have in life? As someone with very few friends, I was standing in my movie theater's hallway waiting for a family member by the bathrooms and this attractive guy started talking to me about the old western movie posters we were by, and it was a decent convo, but I got nervous and took off when my family member emerged. I wish I knew who the guy was. I could have made a movie buddy. When the Beyblade craze was happening, every kid on my street had at least 2, 3 of them, and we would fight each day, organize tournaments, rank our Beyblades and so on. One afternoon, when I was playing with my Legos, I had the glorious idea to build a Beyblade from Legos and fill it with Play-Doh to add some weight to it. Then proceeded to use it against one of the best Beyblades my brother had. Long story short, not only did it become the best Beyblade on my street, it also easily defeated Beyblades all over town. Until one fateful morning when my improvised Lego Play-Doh Beyblade could not be found. I searched the whole house, basement, garden, nothing. To this day I'm not sure how this came to be, but I suspect my grandma threw it in the trash. I miss that Beyblade in that summer, when I was the king of all 9-10-year-olds. I was a teenager, this was 35 years ago, and got a serious neck injury in an accident. I was lying alone on a stretcher in a hallway, waiting for Zray. As I lay there, I heard two men coming around the bend in the hallway, talking. I only got a glimpse of them to see that they were both police officers or detectives with their badges and ID hanging around their neck. And then I told him I couldn't believe it. Well, if you think that is interesting, you should see emergency room 6. Why? Well, you know those large, round wicker-atton chairs? Yeah, well, it seems that. And they were out of earshot. To this day, I wonder about what sort of a worthy injury was caused by a large, round wicker-atton chair. To this day, I live in an historic house once owned by the family of a former PM of the UK. Besides hearing doors closing and other unusual things, on weekends I can hear loud jazz, 20s type music and champagne corks popping coming from our living room, just below our bedroom. It actually keeps me up at night. This isn't a one-time experience. It has happened at least 30 times in the few years we have lived here. I'm an atheist, but the whole thing is really weird. I was on YouTube browsing through videos and came across a random video from my old job. I thought it was crazy how I found the video randomly. Then I saw myself on the video walking with someone. I smiled at the person filming and started talking to them as if I've known them for a while. I have no memory of this ever happening, and I don't recognize the person that filmed it at all. They had a few random videos of themselves singing and a few photos, but I don't remember seeing this person ever in my life. Yet they have a video of me walking up to them and starting a conversation, which is kind of weird considering I've always been kind of quiet and shy. Plus, how the heck did this video pop up on my suggested videos after watching bloopers from The Office? Every Valentine's Day for the last 10 to 12 years, I've been sent a secret admirer card. Same handwriting. Always all caps. Always bearing a postmark from a London sorting office. To this day, I have been unable to determine who's sending it. My biggest suspicion is that it's either my mother or my sister. My evidence being that the cards began when I was in my teenage years, when I was a weird looking, very socially awkward teen that a girl would have to be off her rocker to fancy, and the fact that there's no way in frick that someone who wasn't family would keep it up that long. But I've asked them about it numerous times, and they continue to budge that it's not them. I've asked other members of my family and they insist it's not them either. I've tried getting angry and imploring the whole family that it's getting annoying, and I'd rather know it's them than keep getting bugged by not knowing who the admirer is. Yet still the cards arrive. Either my family has way more willpower and persistence than I give them credit for, or my mystery admirer will never reveal themselves. Regardless, it bugs me like crazy. I once went to a movie by myself when I was living in Georgia for a few months. I was seeing a movie that was several weeks old, so the place was almost completely empty except for a few people in the way front. I sat in the middle seat in the middle row. A few minutes before the movie starts, this group of friends walks in and decides to sit in my row, and they split so that half are on each side of me. They put me in the middle of their group and proceeded to talk over me like I wasn't there until the movie started. I didn't say anything because I was so confused, and it's not like I can ask them not to use the open seats around me. But if they had picked any other row they could have sat together. Why my row? Why split the group around me? Was it just a really dumb prank? Hey, let's just sit around this guy. It'll be hilarious. I must know. Camus Sharon. I prob should not be telling this story, but frick it. I run my own business. I used to rent a building, but we had to move as it was having some issues with the roof. We had to end up suing the landlord for money she owed us. Well, after we moved out and were suing her, we found out she was living in the building as it could not be rented with the roof issues, but had not paid for water or electricity. So she was using the homeless services for that stuff. Well, after a week, when she sold the building, someone had graffiti at her name and then the words Camus in large letters on all the doors. I to this day have no idea what it means, but can be heard muttering Camus Sharon around the house, but it drives the wife crazy, so I have to stop. I lost my best friend in a bike accident. Was going to meet him a day or two before it happened, but I was sick during that time and postponed. I still think, what if I met him? Changing few events that eventually led to the accident. He might still be alive. Still feel sad about it. When I was like 9, I was real sick and needed to crap badly. I was in my room and there was no way I was gonna make it to the bathroom in time. So I leant over my bed and had what felt like some pretty bad diarrhea. Afterwards, I turned around to assess the damage, only to find there was absolutely nothing there. Did I have an hallucination? Did I forget to check above me? Who knows? I actually got my parents to come help me look because I was worried I'd find it one day. TL. Doctor, I lost my crap once when I was younger. When I was younger, my parents took me to see a performance of Peter Pan. During the play, the girl playing Tinkerbell was seemingly able to turn into a tiny floating wispy red light at will. Now my adult brain tells me that there must have been some visual trickery going on and the red light was just a laser pen or something, but I still cannot figure out how they did it. It looked so real, and as a kid I truly believed there was a girl out there with some sort of superpower and all she was using it for was to play Tinkerbell in a Peter Pan play, and to today I still wonder if perhaps it's true. Why my ex decided to cheat on me with my best friend. The logic behind their reasoning never made sense, especially since they broke up a week later. Late to the party, but 2 years ago on Christmas Eve someone knocked on my door in the morning while I was sleeping. I assumed my roommate would get it, but then they knocked again, so I got up and heard someone running away. When I opened the door, a present was there saying to open only on Christmas. It was a PS4 with 2 games. Still have no idea who gave it to me. Got a random message on my phone that 400 minutes had been added to it. No clue how, given that the only people capable of doing it didn't have that kind of money at the time. It was a very nice surprise. When I was 17, I heard sounds like someone was stomping along my roof. I thought maybe it was the landlord or his son, since we had complained that there was a leak. I look everywhere outside, but there were no vehicles parked anywhere, no ladders. The stomping went on for about 10 minutes, back and forth, then stopped. At 15, I went to take a nap after staying up late the night before. My mom came home from work, banged on my door, and I walk out of my room. Immediately I'm hit with a massive wave of heat, and my mom asks me what's going on. I'm confused, and ask her the same. When she came in, she found the oven open and turned up all the way, and one of the dining room chairs directly in front of the bathroom door. The chair had been moved there once before. During the night, when my mom got up to go to the bathroom, I could go on, but that's enough, I suppose. I quite probably have half siblings. I'll never know if they exist, who they are, or what happened to them.